What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the neighborhood, and thank you for spending part of your day with us today. If you're a returning listener, thank you and welcome back. And if this happens to be your first episode, thank you and welcome to the show. On this episode, we're talking about Diablo IV. Welcome to the podcast where two longtime friends and sometimes a guest talk about their favorite games from the perspective of an average player. My name is Andrew Kimball.
And I'm Dylan Wren, and we are your friendly neighborhood gamers.
Diablo IV is a 2023 multiplayer-only action role-playing game developed and published by Blizzard Entertainment. It is the fourth main installment in the Diablo series. Players create a character from one of 5 playable classes: Barbarian, Druid, Necromancer, Rogue, or Sorcerer, and use their skills to complete quests through combat. Staple features returned from previous installments in the franchise, such as a focus on replayable, procedurally generated dungeons and loot-focused character building, while also featuring mechanics new to the series, including an open world and player versus player combat. Diablo IV received generally positive reviews from critics who praised the dark atmosphere, engaging narrative, and replay value. Is that accurate, Dylan?
I assume this was pulled from Wikipedia, and that
No, of course not. I did real research.
Okay, but the whole multiplayer
where did
only
you pull it from?
Oh, Wikipedia.
The multiplayer only part makes me think that some angsty, whiny baby gamers have been editing it, because it's not multiplayer only, it's online only, and they like to harp on the fact that it's like, oh, it's multiplayer, but I don't want to be a multiplayer, I want it to be single player. So that's the energy I'm bringing to this episode. If you like to dump on Diablo 4, you can just turn this off, because I'm not going to agree with you. So
Dylan got his first actually out of the way right at the top there. But before we go much deeper into this and get to experience all the fun that Dylan has planned for us, apparently, we have to introduce the other Capricorn in the room. Dylan's sister, Delaney, is joining us on this episode. How you doing, Delaney?
I was better before I was reduced to Dylan's sister.
Well, I did call you my fellow Capricorn.
I'm okay with that. That's fine.
Okay, so it's like a little bit of an upper, a little bit of a downer. Now you're back to where you started.
Yeah, I guess
it's like a sandwich.
Kind of mellowed me out there.
It's like a sandwich.
Do you need a sandwich, Dylan? Is that why you're cranky right now?
What kind of energy are you bringing into this one, Delaney? If we know what kind of energy Dylan is bringing.
Ooh.
Grandma? Sleepy?
I will state for the record that you two know that I go to bed early, and you scheduled this for
your bedtime?
It's starting at 7:30. I don't know. This could get late.
You and Andrew's daughter have the same bedtime.
She is my best friend.
That is true. Let's kick this thing off with our experiences with the series.
Why don't you go first, because I assume you have the least.
Yeah, so. I guess we should also maybe get that out of the way here. I have not played as much of this game as the other two people on the episode with me here, so I'm here mostly as host, and also I have played a little bit, so I can share my brief thoughts and opinions. But yeah, I'm way earlier on in the game. I think both of you two have rolled credits and have done some of probably the seasonal stuff that's going on now. So you two will be giving verdicts at the end. I will not. So my experience, I played a little bit of 3. I think I played. I'm sure I must have had to have played some with you at some point, Dylan. I remember probably playing with Joe, like couch co-op. We played for like an afternoon one day at my house. It was pretty fun. And then I tried to play it again a little bit after he left and was just like, yeah, I'm not really vibing with this by myself. So then it was really kind of the aesthetic of 4 that made me want to try it. I liked the more realistic, the kind of darker, grittier vibe they were going for. I played the beta and had a good time with that, but then on like the 3rd day of the beta, I was dying from some sort of illness, so I didn't really get to play as much as I wanted. And then I picked up the game at launch. I played with you guys a couple times. I've played by myself enough to get into like Act 2. So I'm like a quarter of the way through the story or whatever, and that's kind of where Final Fantasy came out, and I stopped playing. So
Yeah.
It's still installed. It's not one that I'm like done with and that I don't like. And, you know, I tried it and it wasn't for me or anything. I had a good time when I played it, and I plan on going back to it. I just haven't yet.
You've also done that one random mission or quest in Act 3 that I accidentally did for you.
True, yes, I do have some progress in Act 3.
Just because of the way the co-op system works.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't know it. My bad.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's it from me. Delaney, since you're our guest on this episode, I'm going to kick it to you. What's your experience and history with the Diablo series?
Just to piss everyone off, like all the true gamers didn't play 1 or 2. So already my opinion is going to just be invalid there. 3, I played, I guess I must have played the campaign at some point. I know I did at some point, but really mostly what I played of 3 was this season. And I think you kind of nailed it, Andrew, when you said it's more fun multiplayer. Like, it's fine by yourself. It's a good little, like, I don't tend to play it just focus on that and that's it. I'll like have, you know, a podcast, not yours, obviously. Or
that's fair.
I'll have just like something playing in the background, or I'll play it with a friend or Dylan or whatever. It's a much better multiplayer or like not full focus. I still think of it as a cozy game, which I know a lot of people would disagree with, but it's kind of a mindless one sometimes, which I appreciate. And 4 has been a really interesting experience because it's a lot like 3, but it's also really different. But it's been fun to explore and get kind of new parts of Diablo, which I was kind of done with 3. It was getting a little repetitive. So it's nice to have like new content there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you saying that it, you know, it's like a cozy game. It's a podcast game, something you can do while you're without like your full attention necessarily, kind of just vibe out to it. So I don't know that a lot of people would argue at that point. So you had been playing 3 quite a bit to the point where you were like, I feel finished with this experience, and so then you were excited for something new with 4.
Yeah. Dylan, we played like for a while we played every season, and then it got to be like one of us would get interested in a season every couple of seasons, and then we'd play it together.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's really the beauty of like games like Diablo, is that they are almost set up in a way where you pick it up, you play it for, you know, a few weeks or whatever, and then you kind of just like leave it for a few months or more, and then you can just pop back into it again and play it for a few weeks whenever you want to.
But it's got that really great like small objective, so you get that little endorphin rush when you like complete a little objective that are so quick and easy to do, and it keeps you kind of stimulated and motivated.
They also added like character creation and customization in 4, which is a big deal for me.
Do you actually take default? Do you take character creation seriously? Dylan thinks it's ridiculous.
No, yeah, I love a good character creator. I like messing around with, like, I don't necessarily get into like the weeds of like nose shape and size and stuff like that, but I like to tweak hairstyle and colors and build, and definitely like armor and aesthetics, and go for like a vibe. Like, I've been playing in the Necromancer, and so I'm like using a lot of reds on my outfits and stuff. So yeah, I like that kind of stuff in games.
It was fun to actually have that option. Was that an option in any of the other ones, Dylan? I know it wasn't in 3.
It wasn't in 3, and I don't think it was in 2. And I played 1 so long ago that it's I doubt that it was a thing. And 1 I think might have even come out in the 90s. It might have been like 2000, 2001, something like that. But one was an old game. All
right. Well, I didn't need the "how old am I" punch to the face tonight, you know, but that's fine.
1996.
Yeah. So I don't think character creation in the way that we think of character creation was like, you may have been able to create a character, but
pick your polygon.
Yeah. It was not really like a thing.
Pick your sprite. Yeah.
And then I don't remember that it really being a thing in Diablo 2 ever. I think Diablo 2 is probably like Diablo 3. I've played Diablo 2 a lot more recently, but I personally wouldn't really pick it out because I just went whatever was the default and just kind of started the game. So if there was a
You're
character creation,
actually a monster.
yeah, if there was a character creation, it wasn't in depth enough. Like it definitely wasn't as in depth as Diablo 4. So
Right.
and I would.
Do you use character creation in any game, or do you just do the default in every single one?
The most I usually will do in a character creator is like change the hairstyle, and that's it.
Do you give them a beard or anything?
Well, I mean that's part of your hair stuff,
Oh, okay.
you know.
You're part of the problem.
Well, I don't mind there being character creators, and I am pumped for people like you and Andrew who enjoy them. And when there's a really cool one that's made, I just personally, I'm like, 99% of the time I'm going to be wearing some armor that covers my character anyway, so none of this is going to matter. And once I get into the game, I don't mind as much. Plus, like, I've done enough where I've like attempted, like the one time I attempted to do a character creator was Mass Effect, and then I had to pull that character through 3 saves, Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, and he looked bad in every single one of them. So I was just like, you know what? I'll just do the default and I'll just put some hair on people, and that way, if my character is constantly in cutscenes, it looks fine, you know?
I legitimately restarted Mass Effect 1 because I did not like the way my character looked.
Yeah, see.
I had made it at least an hour into it.
I think Diablo 4 does it pretty well. You're mentioning like armor and stuff because you can continue to customize your character's looks with like transmogging the armor styles and color palettes and stuff like that. So we've gotten a little bit off topic here already talking about that, but I do think it is a feature that I like about the game. You touched on it sort of in that conversation a little bit, but your history, Dylan, with the series.
So the first Diablo game that I really played was Diablo 3. I got it at launch. At the time, it came out like in 2012 while I was in college. And so at the time I was working overnight shifts at a desk at my college. And so they didn't care what we did. And so it was just kind of like, as long as you were awake.
You just had to be there, yeah.
I just had to be there so that if anyone got locked out of the dorm, like, I could let them in. And so I got Diablo 3 and just, played through that campaign over the course of a summer where I was staying up overnight. So it was a lot of fun, I thought. It was my first, I had played Diablo-like games a couple of times. Mm-hmm. Like there was a game called Fate that we had back on a computer, like way back in the day. I think it's made by the people who make the Torchlight games now.
Oh, okay.
Which is another like Diablo type of game.
Yeah.
And so I've enjoyed like all of those games. And so it wasn't the first time I'd ever seen anything like Diablo. It was just the first time playing a Diablo game. So I played through that and I picked up Diablo 2 probably sometime within that next year because I enjoyed Diablo 3. But back when Diablo 3 launched, you kind of just like, it was before it really had seasons, and it was before a lot of the stuff that's in the game now was in there. And so I picked up 2 because I wanted to do more in it. And I had always heard great things about 2. And 2 is good. It's just old. Right. Like we said, the original game came out in like 96. I think the second game came out either in like 99 or 2000 or something like that. So it's gaming has come a long way since Diablo 2 has come out.
Yeah, 2000.
And so, Diablo 3 came out 12 years after that. So I was essentially going back 12 years to play and throwing out all of the, quality of life improvements. And so I got like a couple of acts into Diablo 2 and was like, okay, I've experienced enough of this. I'm, going to move on to some other game or do something else. And then didn't play Diablo 3 for a while, but eventually like picked it up on Xbox because it was on sale and it was like a good co-op, like couch co-op game, like you were saying, Andrew, which is where I think Delaney got introduced to it.
You actually bought it for me for a present one year.
Oh, okay. Well, that's apparently how it got introduced.
Back before there were like expansions. I think I was trying to figure it out. I think I had like 4 different versions of that game over however long it's been out, because I eventually bought it for Switch And I think I bought like the expansion, like was
like
there
the
like
complete edition or whatever?
Yeah.
The,
I think I had
like
3 or
Reaper
4
of
versions.
Souls or something. Oh,
yeah, Reaper of Souls edition.
But I think you bought me the original when we were living together in Oxford.
Okay.
I think I remember having it there.
Yeah. So it was a good like little couch co-op thing that we would all, like me and Delaney and our siblings would get together and play.
Oh yeah.
And, it was kind of a nightmare because like everyone's getting loot and so you have to like wait, like I would go through my loot and then like you're all on the same screen and it doesn't split the inventory up, and so I'd go through mine and then Delaney would go through hers and then Mikey would go through his and then Rory would go through his and whatever.
And Mikey took so long every single time. Like we would drag him through dungeons, so he would get like 5 levels, and he would get 5 levels of dungeon, but every time he would have to respec his whole character, and it was like, come on, man, we are all on the same screen.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a fun game to play like together. And that's when I started, just like, oh, there's this little, seasonal thing, let me try that out. And so essentially what it is you start fresh, like you create a new character that starts at level 1 and you don't have any of the gold, any of the items that your other character, because you've got like a little shared stash. And so you don't have any of the benefits of any of that. And so you start over from scratch and try to complete all these new objectives. And so I tried that out, had a lot of fun with it. It's for me, Diablo eventually kind of hits the point where I've done what I want to with the character. And so this was giving me a reason to continue to play it. I'd get into a season for a few weeks, complete the objectives and whatever, and then put it away for, a few months and then eventually like come back to it. And so eventually Delaney got into it and we just kind of kept playing through seasons of, sporadically, not every season, I don't think, but, often enough, there'd be at least a couple times a year where one of us would be like, like I hopped into Diablo season on my Switch, like let's start, playing it. And so we would. And so I was excited when Diablo IV came out or was coming out because it's been a long time since a Diablo game has come out, and had played the beta, played the game, had a lot of fun with it. Have you even played Diablo Immortal? Although I didn't really stick with that one very long. It's not bad. It's just I don't really play mobile games. Like it's if you want a free version of Diablo, just to like test the waters, like that one's not a bad place to start. So yeah, I guess that's my experience with the series. It's probably the game that I've bought the most because I have I bought Diablo 3 on my computer, then I bought Diablo 3, like the base version on my 360. Then I rebought like Reaper of Souls, like that edition, because it came with the expansion and because it was on sale and I didn't feel like putting the disc into my Xbox anymore.
Classic.
And then I bought it on Switch. So
it's a really good Switch game.
It is a really good Switch game. Diablo 3 on Switch is peak.
I was really disappointed that 4 hasn't come out on Switch yet.
4 will not come out on Switch. It's not, the Switch can't handle it.
They would have to do it like a streaming game, but at this point they'll probably just wait for whatever the Switch successor is.
Switch 2.
It's not bad buying a game that many times when it's been around for like 11 years or whatever before the new one comes out. It's spread out over that many years. It's not too bad.
No.
Yeah, it's just like buying a new Call of Duty every 2 years.
Yeah, and aside from the first time, like I don't think I've ever paid full price for it. Like it routinely goes on sale for like 10 or 15 bucks. So, it's one of those that I picked up multiple times on sale for less than a new game costs today. So
we've kind of touched on it. It's probably going to be a point of comparison throughout the whole conversation, but what are some of the like main things that come to your mind when you think about the differences between Diablo 3 and Diablo 4?
This is not a difference whatsoever. Everybody says, the one question you asked, everybody says it's a difference. I haven't noticed it, but I don't really think the aesthetic is that different between 3 and 4. I don't think it's darker. It feels very similar.
Delaney turns the brightness up on her games a lot.
Oh yeah, I do.
So
never mind.
Well, I mean, aesthetically, yeah, like
It has a more realistic look, Diablo 4 does, versus Diablo 3, which was a little bit more cartoony.
Yeah. Diablo 3 looked a lot more like WoW, whereas this game is going for, I mean, it still has kind of an art style to it. I wouldn't say they're going for like, photorealism or anything, but definitely like the marketing and everything felt like, hey guys, we're going back to the dark Diablo. Get excited. And the opening cutscene and everything with the blood ritual and all that stuff. It's like, I don't think that would have looked quite as cool in the Diablo 3 art style, but
well, the Diablo 3 cutscenes are much different than the Diablo 3 art style as well. So,
well, there you go. So maybe that's part of it too, is that the actual gameplay kind of maintains that vibe throughout the whole experience.
And there's a lot more like colorful things in Diablo 3, which some people on the internet absolutely hate, but I don't mind.
I'm kind of excited for, I give it like a year or so before all of the like hardcore people are done with Diablo 4 and move on to something else. And then it's just the people who are there to appreciate it and have fun, and they can get back to some of the fun stuff like the cow season. I want a cow season.
Yeah.
That would not fly right now.
Probably not. It would be difficult.
But give it like a year, and I think we can get there.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a bunch of big differences, to get us back on topic, in Diablo from 3 to 4. Probably the biggest one outside of like the sort of art style, which I also agree with Delaney. I struggle personally to see a huge difference, but also that's like an 11-year gap too. I think maybe I attribute a lot more of the difference to just like, well, yeah, the game's 11 years old, like it's gonna look different because all games, like 2012, we're talking the difference between like what Halo 4 and some of the newer games. Like there's a lot of big differences in 2012 to games now. But another huge difference is the open world. This is the first time that there has been a big open world in a Diablo game. Previously, they were all set in like zones. Like there were 4 or 5 zones in a game, and you could travel in between the different parts of the zones freely. And they were all like procedurally generated. This one now has like an overworld that is the same for everybody. And it's a big, like you can you don't have to teleport. Most of the time you are going to teleport just because it's quicker. But
you could walk from one end to the other. You could
walk from one end to the other, versus in Diablo 3, the different acts all had different maps that you could go to. And so that's a big difference. Diablo 4 has MMO elements, basically meaning like when you're in a main town or walking around the world, sometimes you'll see other players, and that really, to me, doesn't make a big difference. I hardly notice, but it does allow them to do some cool things too. Like there are world bosses and world events and stuff that you can run across in the open world, and sort of link up with other players to get them done and do them more effectively. So that's kind of cool.
That part has been kind of fun. I haven't done a whole lot of those, but it's nice like when something pops up on the map and it's like, oh, Legion event in like 5 minutes. There's usually 5 or 6 people there already doing it. And I've also had people, while I'm just getting destroyed by something because I played a sorcerer first and they're real squishy. Somebody, like multiple times, people have hopped off their mount and like come and killed everything and then got back on their way.
Yeah.
I very much appreciated.
Yes. Mounts is another thing that is different. You have a horse to go slightly faster and to get stuck on random objects in the world. And there's a lot of like little technical things that are kind of different. Like in Diablo 3, your moves were a set thing that unlocked as you leveled up, and then you could choose which ones you wanted to use, but like you always unlocked like this move at level 43 or whatever. Right. And then all of the moves had like, I forget what they called them, like runes or something, that changed the way that they worked fundamentally. And so it's like this one, this was a tornado, now it's a big fire tornado or something like that. And so So that's
It
how
is
skills worked in 3.
more
In
of a
4, you have a big
pain
skill tree.
to reset your it's a much bigger pain to respec in 4.
Yeah, like it costs money and it resets all your skill points, like in-game money, not real money. But yeah, like in Diablo 3, if you wanted to change your moves around, you could just change them, and you could save loadouts and stuff, so that you could swap between different builds, and it would change your armor, it change everything for you. Diablo 4 doesn't have that yet. Like, I'll say yet because I don't think Diablo 3 had that when I played it through originally. Like, I think that's something that they added over the 12 years that it was out.
Yeah, I was going to say they definitely have plenty of time to tweak this game if it's going to be another like 10 to 15 year life.
Yeah, but this one, yeah, it is like you get like 48 skill points that you can reset, and then you have to like assign them differently or whatever for each build, which makes it a little bit more of an annoyance. It's better than Diablo 2, which had a skill tree system but didn't let you respec at all, I don't think. So if you made the wrong decision, you were just stuck. But so that's a bit different. Diablo 3 also, like, a lot of the end game builds focused around sets of gear. And so like you'd have your blue gear, your yellow gear, your orange gear, like various rarities, and then you would have green gear, and the green gear was all like one set, and it usually drastically changed. It would be like, this move now does 10,000 times more damage or whatever. And so it drastically changed like how the character felt and played, because it was sort of prescribing like a build play style, versus Diablo 4, which focuses more on like, you have all of these different aspects that you can collect throughout the game, and you can put them on various pieces of gear and sort of make your own build. There's not like a set that drastically changes it. Like, there are aspects that empower the moves that you use, but it's not as like big of a difference as Diablo 3 was. So like, that's kind of a big difference that I see. The classes are different. Almost none of the classes that I played in 3 are in 4
Yet
as well. They are going to be releasing more, but
so what did you play in 3?
Mostly Witch Doctor.
That tracks.
Witch Doctor was the class that I played a ton of. I also played some Barbarian, but I also played, I want to say Templar, but I don't know if that's the actual name for it or if it was Crusader. And then, so like, those were the main ones that I would play.
What classes did you play in 3, Delaney?
It's funny we have like no overlap whatsoever. I played Demon Hunter 90% of the time, and then occasionally I dabbled with witch or wizard, or I think wizard, but that was pretty much it. And so I thought sorcerer would be like the natural comparison, so I played that in the beta and I liked it, and I've been playing it in 4 or in the actual release, and it was fine. I just was very squishy and felt like I wasn't doing a whole lot of damage, and it was getting a little frustrating, but I just kind of thought that was, the game. And then for the season, I switched to Necromancer, and it's so much more fun.
Yeah, that's what I'm playing as a Necromancer, and I was kind of feeling like you, where I didn't really feel like I was doing much, or didn't know if I was doing things like any kind of optimally, and I wasn't. So I looked up a build, and once I had like a guide to follow to kind of actually give me a consistent play style, I don't even really need help doing things in the game. I'm just like, me and my little army are just like stomping through all these catacombs and dungeons and caves and stuff. So that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What are you playing, Dylan, in 4?
I went through the campaign as a druid and was not really feeling it very much, at least initially. I've since come around on it. So once I finished the campaign, I started a barbarian, because you can, like, once you finish the campaign, you can just skip the campaign and start a new class. So I played barbarian, and really had a lot of fun with barbarian. I like barbarian in this game. And then this season I've been playing sorcerer. It's been fun, but it took me a while to find a build for Sorcerer that I liked. I have one now that I'm enjoying, but the first couple I tried, I just didn't feel like I was really doing a ton of damage. And that was kind of like Druid as well. Like I played through and I just was like, this doesn't feel like I was using a build, like a guide, but it was like the whole thing of the Druid is like it can shapeshift, like you can shapeshift into a wolf or a bear or whatever. And the build that I was using for a lot of the campaign wasn't doing that. It was just like, these are the moves that on paper do the best damage or whatever.
Right.
And so to me, it wasn't fun and I wasn't enjoying it. I have since swapped to like the thing where like builds where I can shapeshift into a wolf and a bear, and those are a lot more fun. I'm enjoying those a lot more. And Druid, like some of the classes, Druid in particular, seem way more reliant on like certain special armors in order to like kind of make them work efficiently. Those armors don't start dropping until you're at like level 50 and playing sort of like end game stuff. So leveling up to 50 kind of sucked for me as Druid until I made the swap to a werewolf. So
on the subject of builds and armor and whatnot, 4 is a little more overwhelming, I would say, trying to figure all of that out. And maybe it's because people are still figuring it out, because I will shamelessly cheat and use a guide on what I'm supposed to do. But the aspects are almost too much for me to even want to bother dealing with. I'm not playing Diablo to think that hard. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So like with my Sorcerer, and probably part of the reason my Sorcerer wasn't as powerful as they should have been is because I just could not be bothered to deal with the aspects. I did not have the mental capacity to put an aspect on anything. There was too much. Why can you have the same aspect on 5 different pieces of armor? I'm not trying to like figure out which one is the best and it was too much. Too much. I don't have that mental energy.
Yeah, because that to me is probably the biggest difference that's affected me from Diablo 3 to 4 is just kind of like Diablo 3, it was pretty easy to make a build. You just kind of picked the moves that you wanted. You picked, and like the armor, it's like, even if you were looking up a build, it's like, these are this is the chest piece that you want. And it only drops as a chest piece. Like it doesn't drop as like a weapon that you then have to disenchant and then put the enchantment on like a different piece of armor or something like that. And so it's a lot less complicated and a lot easier to just be like, okay, I'm going to make this build. Whereas Diablo 4 in theory gives you a lot more freedom to kind of make your builds or whatever. But also I would venture to guess that a lot of people who played Diablo are kind of like, you know what? I am not really playing it because I want to turn my brain on. I'm kind of playing it because I want to kill a bunch of demons with my brain off, you know?
Watch numbers go up.
Exactly. And you can do that, but you occasionally have to like sit down and be like, oh, okay, now I'm going to like put all of my aspects in the right place. Which like the builds online tell you, like, you know, put this aspect on this piece of armor or whatever. And so it's not like super complicated, but it is way more complicated than Diablo 3 was. And it's a lot more, the loot is a bit stingier than it was in Diablo 3. Again, Diablo 3 has kind of ebbed and flowed throughout its 11-year, 12-year lifespan. So the loot in Diablo 3 did not always drop like it does now. But it's a lot easier to get the things you want in Diablo 3 versus in Diablo 4, where sometimes you just keep trying and trying and trying to get a specific piece of gear to drop and you can't get it. So
it kind of sounds like we don't like Diablo 4, but I really have enjoyed it so far. Like,
yeah,
I think one of the strong points of 4 as compared to 3 is the variety they've added with things to do. You have a lot more options. So, I mean, you can do dungeons, you can do cellars. There are a billion side quests to do. The whispers are kind of like the bounties from 3, but those are constantly changing and you can do as many as you want. But then they've added like hell tides and world events and things like that, and the PvP. So now there's more on that side too, which keeps it more interesting for longer.
Yeah. And, it's one of those games too where it's not, in my opinion, designed to be the only game you ever play for the rest of your life sort of thing. It's definitely designed to be a game where you play through the campaign or whatever, you play through as much of the season as you want to, and then you put it on a shelf and come back to it, when a new season starts or something. Like it's a game that has a lot to do, but it's also not like all of the variety of things to do. It's not like, I guess what I'm trying to say is it doesn't feel like it's a job to have to do it. Like it's not like, oh, I'm missing out on this or that if I don't do this event or I don't do that. Like it's just kind of like, oh, I feel like doing this right now.
You can say it. It's not like Destiny.
Well, yeah, or WoW,
Yeah,
or
WoW.
like it's a much more laid back experience in my opinion.
I don't disagree with you, but the whole time you were talking, all I could think about is what game is the only game that you'll ever play again? Like, what game is designed to be that?
I mean,
Destiny. Wow.
Yeah, big MMOs, a lot of times, it's the only game that they want you playing. But also, the internet, a very loud, angry, whiny subset of the internet thinks that every game that comes out, they deserve to play for the rest of their lives. And if there ever comes a time where they've done everything in the game to do because they put 400 hours into it, they get very upset.
Dylan is very upset with the internet lately, and we're going to have to do an episode where we let him air his grievances and get it out of his system.
We're going to need somebody on that episode to act as the voice of the internet.
just to
let
trigger
them have
him.
it out.
Just a really
you can come back because you already trigger me.
Yeah, do it. It'll be fun.
So I didn't mention it at the start of the episode like I probably should have, but we are going to save anything that might be considered like a story spoiler and stuff for the end of the conversation. Yeah. We'll put up a spoiler wall. But I did want to ask you guys kind of what your general thoughts and feelings about the story, the way it was told, the length, the stuff like that. Just kind of general top level, and then we can dive into some more, specific things once we enter the spoiler section.
Ooh, let me go first on this one, because I can be quick. I don't care. I don't play Diablo for the story. It was fine.
I'm right there with you for the bits I have played. Like, I'll watch the pre-rendered cutscenes, but there's something about the presentation, the camera angle, something when they're talking and I'm looking down at like the tops of their heads, I'm just like reading it, skip, reading, skip, and then sometimes I don't even read it. I'm like, yeah, okay, got it. I got to go find the thing. I'll bring it back when I'm done. So I'm kind of like, that is not typically me in games. Like usually I get invested in the story or at least watch the cutscenes or let the characters talk. But in Diablo 4, for some reason, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
It really shouldn't give you the option to just skip the whole thing as often as it does, because I didn't, but it was real tempting most of the time.
Yeah. Well, and like I thought the story was good. I enjoyed it. I personally thought the story was better than 3. Like I was very interested to see like Lilith and like what they did with all of that story. I don't know how much of it is like also semi like reliant on your knowledge of Diablo. Like you can definitely play through the game and get a complete story without really knowing anything about the Diablo universe. But it definitely felt like there was way more history in this one than there was in previous Diablo games, to me anyway.
Did you care about any of the side characters? Because at least the ones I've encountered so far, I don't really care about. Although I just entered Act 2 and kind of the setup they were presenting there, I was like, oh, I kind of like these guys. This seems a little bit interesting, a little more interesting than the people I was talking to in Act 1. So maybe there will be some that like win me over. But so far, I'm just kind of like, I don't really care about you or your problems that much. Like I'm doing this because I'm enjoying the gameplay loop. I'm not really invested in like helping you find your mom or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I had fun. Like, I don't know that I would say that I was like super, super invested, but I enjoyed like the little story of, the characters in Acts 1, 2, and 3. who kind of come together to be your little party in Acts 4, 5, and 6. So and you know, looking back too, it's, you know, tough to remember, like, did I care about this person in Act 1, or is it just because of everything that goes on in Acts 4, 5, and 6 that, like, now I actually in hindsight care more about them.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, like, I've had fun with it. Like, the side quests can be interesting. They're not, you know, like Witcher 3 levels of side quests, but it's also, they're not like, if you sit down and you pay attention to them, like, it's not going to be like, well, that was a waste of time. Even though a lot of times side quests and things in general in the Diablo universe end with the person dying, just because it's gotta be like, it's gotta be just the worst, one of the worst, like, video game universes to live in.
Very dark universe.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure every side quest that starts with, I haven't seen this person, like, they wandered off and they're missing. They're dead. 100% of the time they are dead.
Yeah.
And the one time the person wasn't dead, she was like she exploded. Like, she came back, we rescued her, and then she exploded. Like, and
she died later. Dead. Yeah, they die or they turn into some abomination.
Every time.
And you have
if
to
somebody is missing for 24 hours, just hold the funeral. It's over.
Yeah. But yeah, like, it, you know, like, I thought the story was good. I thought it was fine. Like, you know, is it the best video game story I've ever experienced? No, but it was enough to keep stringing me along. It was longer than I expected as well.
Yeah, it was, I thought, pretty well, I don't want to say timed, but the length of it was pretty much right on to get you to level 50 and the end game. Because I think I did that, and I didn't do too many of the side quests. I think I did a good chunk in the first area, but I didn't do really side quests anywhere else. And I think I was right at 50 when I finished it. It was perfectly the right length to move on to the next phase of the game.
Yeah, I think I basically didn't do any side quests unless, like, I picked a bunch up, but unless they were, like, on the path of what I was doing, I really didn't pay too much attention to them as, like, during the playthrough. I was just doing the story, and just doing the story, I think I ended at about 45, and it took 25 hours. Like, it was a little bit longer than I was expecting it to be, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. The first 3 acts definitely feel much longer than the last 3 acts.
So does the seasonal stuff work like it did in Diablo 3, where you replay the game again? Because playing 25 hours every time there's a new season, I mean, it's different for everybody, but that would be an ask for me.
It depends. So once you've beaten the campaign, you can skip it.
And
so
just
you don't
jump
have to
into
replay
the, like, end game stuff.
You can just, well, you still start at level 1, but you just go in, and rather than, like, because the campaign kind of locks a bunch of stuff off, like, you don't have a mount until the end of, like, chapter 3. You don't have access to, like, some areas until you, like, get to them, and so you have access to the whole map and everything, but you do still start at level 1, and you just can go, like, there are ways to level faster once I'm not really using them, but, like, in theory, if you eventually, you know, like, in a month or 2 are like, hey, I want to try out the season in Diablo, like, Delaney and I will probably have max level characters at that point, or like heavily leveled characters, and we could just kind of, like, boost you through to end game situation.
The classic video game experience.
That is the one thing I would like to see them adjust fairly quickly with. That is, it's a pain in the ass to level to, like, wherever. I think I'm level 40 right now on my seasonal character, and it's a slog. Like,
it does go a bit slow.
It flowed really well when you did the campaign, but just starting from 1 and leveling yourself up to 50, where you can start doing more open world stuff in the season, oof, 40 is rough.
Yeah.
So what is the goal of the season? What do you what do they use to get you back into the game? Why are you playing it? What are you doing?
So a big part of it is, like, what I was saying earlier, where it's just, like, you get to start fresh, you know, because, like, if you start a new camp or a new character in just the regular game after you've beaten it, like you still have access to all that gold, all the stuff, all the, like this is starting over fresh. So that's kind of cool. For some people, there's also like a season journey is what they call it. That's got like 4 base chapters and then 4 like bonus chapters. And so the chapters give you kind of objectives that most of the time you would have naturally done along the way. And so it's things like, go clear this many strongholds, go do this many side quests, go do, like unlock this or do that, or, so it gives you like things that you can constantly be sort of checking off and working towards as you're leveling.
Which
the
really
big difference
feeds the completionist part of my soul of like checking boxes off. And they usually, starting off like the first couple chapters, I don't take that much work. The further on you go, they're harder and take longer. So you have that constant little endorphin rush of like, hey, you checked the thing off. Good job.
Yeah. And there's a lot of times where because after you beat the campaign in Diablo 4, like if you're just playing regularly, you're not doing a season, you're kind of just like, well, I want to either, keep, because you beat the campaign around 50, you can technically get up to level 100. So a lot of the end game is either just continuing to level slowly but like you're not unlocking really much new stuff at that point. And so you're either just trying to get better gear to do things quicker or whatever. So it kind of like peters out unless you're just like making your own objectives for yourself. And so like for me, when I play through, it's kind of like once I have a build that is working, I'm kind of done with that character. I'll still hop on and I'll still play stuff, but it's kind of like, all right, this character is killing stuff really quickly now. Like that's fun, but there's no like, it's not like World of Warcraft or something where it's like, okay, now I'm going to go run this raid.
Right.
It's like, no, I did the stuff. I have all the gear I need. I could get better versions of the gear that I have, but like, I'm not really fundamentally changing things. And so the season lets you get a build that's working and then gives you further objectives to kind of be working towards.
Gotcha.
And so that's where a lot of the fun comes. And in Diablo 3, they usually, like, if you completed all of the stuff, that you got a bunch of like cosmetics and stuff. And so that was kind of cool. So far, I don't think Diablo 4 is giving you cosmetics, but there is like a battle pass that's tied to the season that is giving you cosmetics, some free, some that you have to buy the battle pass to get. So it's like a little bit different there.
What are they charging for the battle pass in Diablo?
I think it's $10.
Oh, okay,
so like
standard.
$10 for 3 months. Yeah, it's not ridiculous, and everybody who's like losing their minds over their being a battle pass in Diablo needs to just like go touch some grass and take some deep breaths, because guys, like, really, come on.
It's nice that the battle pass is completely optional. Like it doesn't really add anything. If you want to have cooler armor or whatever, love that for you. It's awesome. But you don't have to buy it, which is nice because you've just bought a full-priced game. You shouldn't have to pay extra money for future content. And I would venture to say that, like, I won't speak for everybody else, but the seasons are a big part of what I liked about Diablo 3. So if I had to continuously pay more for them, I just wouldn't have bought. Like, that should have been included as part of the game because that's why I bought it.
Yeah, so the season itself is free. You don't have to pay anything for the season. It's literally just cosmetics that you can get. And like, yeah, the cosmetics are cool. I don't care about character creators. I also really don't care about cosmetics. That's not to say I won't occasionally buy some, but like,
you're really the worst.
I've seen your Fortnite account, so...
Well, most of my Fortnite account is because I would let my little brother play for like a month when I was home on vacation from college or something, and he would just get me so much Fortnite bucks or whatever, and I would then spend it on what I wanted to.
Fortnite bucks. You sound like such an old man.
The V-Bucks. But yeah.
The other part of the season, and I don't know if it'll continue in 4, but in 3 there was usually what we called like a gimmick. Like it changed some aspect of the gameplay, sometimes in a significant way, sometimes not really in a big way whatsoever, but it changed fundamentally how the game played.
That's what you were referencing when you were talking about cows.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like right now, this season in Diablo 4 is the season of the malignant, and there are these like malignant hearts or gems that you can put in your jewelry that you have for your characters, and it gives them like a bonus power. And so it's a way to get basically like 3 little bonus powers in your stuff, which is cool. You know, like that's it is. So far, I haven't noticed it being like a big crazy difference from regular, but also it's the first season, and I'm not into like I haven't gotten to level 50 yet, which is where everything kind of changes for the game. Once I hit 50, I'll know a little bit more about like how big of an impact it makes. But that is like a cool little thing where even if this season isn't the most interesting one, like they do add like a little thing that tweaks it. You know, in Diablo 3, a lot of the like just crazy stuff that like there was one season where I think you got like a ridiculous like plus 10,000 damage or like plus 10,000% damage if you didn't wear sets or something. And so that was like a very interesting season because you were trying to make the best build you could without the sets. There's another season, like the season right now has a skill tree that you can go down, which is really cool. Like one of the skills takes away item level requirements, so you can just like create a new character and wear all level 70 gear and level up really fast so that you can get into the end game. So there's a lot of like cool aspects about it. But the seasons, you know, like that's where the longevity of the game really comes in, because it's the thing that keeps giving you objectives every 3 months of like, hey, start fresh, work towards these objectives, and, you know, play for as long as you want. And then when you're kind of done with it, put it away, come back to it when a new season starts. Do that, you know?
Nice. Is there anything else you two want to say before we move into spoilers?
I alluded to like the game changes at 50, and it really does. Like if you are playing through the game, I would heavily recommend just like play through the campaign. And once you beat the campaign and get to level 50, like they add so many more things to do. That is a cool part of it. So don't feel like you've got to like do everything before you finish the campaign, because there's a lot of reasons to keep playing it after you finish the campaign. There's like hell tides, which are basically like a zone that spawns like a ton of enemies that you kill and collect like shards from. If an enemy kills you, you die and lose your shards. And so you can use the shards to like open chests that give you specific loot. So that's really cool. The world bosses are also a lot of fun. That you can't do those until you hit level 50. So like every 6 hours or so, there will be a big spawn of those. The whispers, which we've talked about, which we can't really say much more about because it also ties into like the campaign. But there's a whispers system that works like the bounties from Diablo 3. That's also pretty fun. So
cool. Well, we will listen to a little bit of Diablo 4 music here. And when we come back, we'll be in full spoilers, and there will be timestamps for when we come out of spoilers and when Dylan and Delaney give their verdicts on Diablo 4. All right, full spoilers. Where do you guys want to start? What do you have to say that's spoilery?
I don't think Lilith was the villain. I'm going to just say that. I don't think she was.
Yeah, the way the game presents itself, it's very much just like, I know that she's technically the villain. Like I know that, but it's also like I didn't ever really see her do a whole lot of evil stuff. Like her whole shtick, the lore part, is that she is the mother of Sanctuary, and Anarius, the big angel dude, is the father. And so like they created Sanctuary and like your characters are offspring of them from like a long time ago. And essentially, like, her whole gift was that she gave free will to the people. And so her whole shtick is constantly saying, like, well, you're free to do whatever you want. And then people, like, kill other people for her. And so it's kind of like one of those things where all throughout the campaign, I was trying to figure out if they were doing a, like, Lilith's not actually bad. Like, it's the people that are just, like, there's evil inside all of them. And so they want to, like, kill, like, when given the option, they decide to, like, do horrible things. I'm pretty sure she is actually, like, kind of evil, but it's Diablo 4. It's the Diablo world, which we've established as a very grim, dark, terrible place. And so kind of everything sucks. And so when you compare her to, like, even the good guy Angel, like, quote unquote, Inarius, he's also awful and sucks a lot.
Yeah.
And you see them kill way more people than you ever see Lilith kill. And so
does she actually ever kill anyone? I don't remember.
I don't think she ever actually killed anyone herself. She did definitely summon a demon in the body of a guy's son, and then we killed that demon, which also killed the guy's son. So, like, that wasn't great.
Really, we're the bad guys in that one.
Yeah, we did kill him though.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it is interesting. Like, every single new place you go in Diablo 4 is just like, oh, we've reached a new level of just bad. Like, I thought that was bad, but now it's like, oh no, this is the worst town we've ever been to, and then you just keep going with that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of bad, those little questions, like, things that you see on, like, the social medias where it's like, the last video game that you played is the new video game world you have to live in. Like, you don't want this one to be the world that you have to do, like, because it's kind of like the Warhammer 40K equivalents of, like, fantasy. Well, I guess Warhammer Fantasy is anyway, but it's just like a very sucky place. And so all of the people suck. All of the people are pretty much evil. And so Lilith, when compared to them, is kind of like, like, she doesn't seem all that bad, and she seems to be making some points. So
it's more just like warring factions, and you happen to be on one side.
Yeah. Well, and, like, she is summoning demons, and demons do kill people. And so it's like, well, that needs to stop. Like, we need to cut that out. But also, like, there's this whole overarching war between heaven and hell, and Sanctuary was created to be a place apart from that. But both sides are trying to, like, use Sanctuary in order to win the war against the other. And so Lilith is also, like, trying to kind of, like, she's saying that she's, like, going to take over hell, but then eventually, like, she'll probably try to stop heaven from the way to stop the eternal conflict is to win it. And so she would probably end up just doing the same thing that she said she wanted to stop.
We don't know that.
Essentially, you're caught between, like, your sucky dad and, like, your kind of manipulative mom, and, like, both of those suck. Both options are not good, and you end up being excommunicated by the good guy church, and you're also, like, not on great terms with Lilith because you killed her, as much as you can kill a demon, because they just come back. So
even having killed her, though, you're on better terms with her than, like, the good
guy church. Yeah, because he's just straight up dead. He dies. So
yeah.
Do you think Diablo would be just as good / what it is today without all of this? Like, if the story was much simpler and straightforward and wasn't so lore heavy, like, is all that really necessary?
No, it's not, because I'm on a podcast with two people who have skipped every cutscene except the pre-rendered ones. So, like,
True.
There are probably a couple I didn't skip.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I don't think that it matters all that. It's kind of like the story in World of Warcraft, in my opinion, where
another
it's like
story I'm not
the people who
with.
are
there. I'm sorry, there's a story.
Yeah, like, the people who are into it. Well, most people who play World of Warcraft hate it, so there's that complication. But, like, it's the story. It's the story, kind of like, Dark Souls or something, where it's like the people who are into the story get super into the story and the lore. I would be willing to bet that at least 80% of people who play a From Software game don't pay attention to any of the story. So
that's kind of the beauty of Diablo, is you have so many choices. Like if you are super into the story, love that for you. Solid. You can choose to play the whole thing, watch all the cutscenes, do all the things, or you cannot, and it's still fine. You can choose to only do the side quests, or you just want to do the dungeons and that's it. Go for it. Love that.
So is Blizzard just good at gameplay and bad at story?
I mean, I wouldn't say that they're bad at story, although
Overwatch,
some hype. I mean, I would watch I don't think Overwatch is a good example because I'm not a huge fan of Overwatch's gameplay, and I would watch an Overwatch TV show so much.
But the fact that doesn't exist.
Is it the way they're presenting the story? Because I don't think the story in Diablo is bad. I think it's probably pretty decent. But it was just really hard to get into.
It's 100% it for me with Diablo. It's just like I can't. It was the same way when I played like Fire Emblem Three Houses. There's just certain types of games and ways that stories are presented where it's just much harder for me to engage and get invested, even if technically the quality of the writing and the setting and all that is interesting on paper and should be my thing. It's like it does presentation and just style and stuff like that does play a big part in it for me.
Yeah, well, because like you said, for the most part, a lot of the scenes are just kind of like slightly zoomed in, sort of top-down views of characters talking or walking around or doing something, versus like if you actually like cut into like, made it more cinematic, made it more like there's definitely a lot of like cinematic scenes in Diablo 4.
Yeah.
Way more than there were, I think, previously in other games. But still a lot of the story is kind of told from sort of that like top down, like here's a text box, read the text box, maybe there's like voiceover with it or not, like not always. And so there's a lot of times where it's just like, oh, okay, like I'm just gonna like skip through or just read it real quick and then hit A to go on to the next one, or just skip it entirely. And so like I do think more people would pay more attention to the story if it looked more like a TV show or something, like more traditional cutscene type of style.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could take the text boxes straight out because you don't have a choice. Like, don't make me click it. That is infantilizing. Like, you're just giving me something to do. You don't have to. That's fine. I didn't need to click.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd be interested to see if eventually down the road they add in some like, I want to pay attention to the story mode, or just like my default option when stuff pops up is to skip. Because there was in Diablo 3, eventually they came out with what was called adventure mode, which like anytime there would have been a cutscene, it just skipped it automatically. And you just like went directly into it. So I think there's some precedent for that. I didn't think it was a bad story.
No.
It definitely ended on more of a cliffhanger than like 3 did. Like 3 was a complete story, and then the expansion for 3 was like its own complete story, just shorter. Whereas Diablo 4, definitely you can kind of tell that they're leaning more into the games as a service seasonal thing, because they definitely left the ending of Diablo 4 as like, oh, okay, like this is going to be there is more to this story. Like it is not just a wrapped up in a little bow sort of situation. Like you complete you defeat Lilith part of it, but then there's definitely way more coming. And so we've seen that a little bit in the seasonal content, because there's a continuation of the story that is going on a little bit in this season. And I think they've said there's at least 2 expansions coming. So
is there anything else like story-wise or in the game that's worth bringing up in the spoiler section? Because I mean, we've mentioned it multiple times. Diablo is about the gameplay. There is the story there. So I mean, I didn't expect this spoiler section to be one of the longer ones we've done, but I don't want to leave anything unsaid necessarily. No, just Lilith.
No, I mean, like
her thing.
Yeah, I was a little surprised Diablo hasn't shown up yet in the game. I'm pretty sure he's like in the first Diablo game, you fight Diablo.
Right.
That's like the whole point. In Diablo 2, you're following a Dark Wanderer who has a soul stone with Diablo in it. And so at the end of the game, I think you fight Diablo. In Diablo 3, you're collecting soul stones again or whatever, and then you get betrayed and Diablo comes out and you fight Diablo at the end of Diablo 3. And so I was kind of like expecting somewhere along the way, it's like, oh, tricked ya. The last act is going to be like Diablo's doing some stuff and you're going to like team up with Lilith to fight Diablo. And that's going to be like Diablo 4. But so far we have not fought Diablo. So I assume that'll be in one of the expansions or something.
That's what I was going to say is, do you think it'll be like in a major expansion, or do you think that's something they would try to shove into seasonal content?
Yeah, I think it'll be a major expansion because like the seasonal content, it seems like a continuation of the world, I guess, more so than a continuation of the story.
Yeah.
Because the story, I forget her name. What's her name? What's the girl's name who got her arm chopped off?
I don't know.
I forget what it is, but she like you've got Lorath, you've got the little girl who I forget her name. She's not little. I'm sure she's like 18 or like she's an adult, it seems like. And then you've got the guy who is in chapter 2, who Andrew was saying he's a little bit more invested in, but not invested enough to remember his name.
I mean, you're not remembering his name either, so.
Yeah, but I also played this like a couple months ago. So the story ends with her kind of sailing off with the soul stone that has Mephisto in it, because Mephisto is like Lilith's dad and is like in a soul stone that this girl has. And so everyone's like, oh, that's a bad idea. But it's not Diablo. And so like that part of the story is what I assume will be picked up in an expansion, versus right now it's like, oh yeah, there are these malignant monsters coming out now. And it's just kind of a continuation of like something we did must have made these come out. So I haven't necessarily seen, I don't think you'd be missing something if you missed this season story wise, you know?
Yeah, gotcha.
It's got a story, which is cool, but it's not something that's like pertinent from what I can tell so far.
Cool. Well, with that, let's go ahead and roll into our verdicts for this episode. So the way we rate games is on the classic A through F scale that you should be familiar with from school. But above A, there is S, and S is a masterpiece. So knowing that, Delaney, where would you rate Diablo 4?
I would say it's an A. It's exactly what I wanted out of it. Like if you're comparing it to just all games in general, I don't know. But is it exactly what I wanted when they announced Diablo 4 was coming out? Yes, it is. Exactly. And I think they still have some tweaks to make it flow better. Like the season right now, the leveling is so slow and painful. I think that is an easy adjustment they could make moving forward. But it's exactly what I wanted out of Diablo. It's brainless fun. It's real fun to play with other people. The story is not why I play it whatsoever. So that part I really don't care about. And it's got all of those little objectives that make my brain happy.
Yep. It is technically couch co-op as well.
Yes, I've done it. I forgot to mention that, but Joe and I played it one afternoon, and then he ended up picking it up on PC and playing through it. So yeah, we had a good time playing it. The couch co-op works really well. They worked out a lot of those pain points that you were mentioning when you were talking about Diablo 3 as far as like opening screens and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely, you can tell there was like a 11-year gap between games, but
my one real complaint, and it's not huge, but I don't like it. The map, there's too much going on. I can't. Dylan has heard this complaint many times. I don't like the map. It's a pain in the ass to read. He will mark something with a little pin. Why bother letting you mark something with a pin if it's indecipherable from the rest of the freaking map? Make it bright. Make it bright and flashing. I can't see where anything is. If I mark a quest that I'm working on Why is it so hard to find on the map where that quest is? Why? Why is your map have so much going on that it's unusable?
This is also somebody who didn't want to play The Witcher 3 because too much was going on.
I didn't... Wait, is that why I didn't want to play The Witcher?
That was one of your many excuses for not playing one of the greatest games
in
all
The
time.
Witcher.
Dylan, where would you rank Diablo 4?
I would also rank it at an A. I think I gave Diablo 3 an A on our YouTube channel, which you can find. But I would also give Diablo 4 an A. It's a different game, for sure. And, this is an A for me personally as someone who is a Diablo fan and who enjoys the Diablo gameplay. And, like Delaney was saying, this is what I wanted from a new Diablo game. Like, it's shinier, it's new, there's a lot going on, and like I'm having a lot of fun with it. There's definitely a lot that I see that they can make improvements of. Yes, even the map I think can be improved because there are a lot of like little pain points that I think, but it's nothing to me that I look at and am like, oh man, this is like game breaking, this is knocking it down a rank. Like it's more so just stuff that I'm like, yeah, like Diablo 3 when it came out was not what it is today. Like it evolved into that over many, many years. And so I'm anticipating Diablo 4 also, like I think it's a very, very solid game already. And I'm looking forward to what they continue to do with it. All the little tweaks and changes that they keep making. As long as they're not only listening to like people who are level 100 who have dumped like 300-400 hours into it and have run out of things to do, who are now whining about inconsequential things that don't affect a majority of players, because that's another thing. Most people have not finished the campaign in this yet. Most people have not made it to level 50 yet. Most people playing this game are just playing it and having fun and taking their time. It's not I think like 60-70% when I looked at it about a month ago had finished. There's plenty of time, plenty of people who are playing this and enjoying it and having fun.
And I think an interesting point of Diablo, whatever number we're going to be on eventually at some point, is it feels like a full and complete game already. Like they very clearly finished a whole game, and I don't know exactly what their plans are, but based on what they did with 3, it will hopefully continue to evolve and be made better. And like, that's kind of exciting. I'm not a huge gamer, so like I don't know how normal that is for other games, but I don't necessarily look at this as the final product because they tweaked 3 so much. Like all of the little complaints I have about 4, I'm fairly confident they'll fix and adjust, and I doubt really the map gets changed that much, even though that's what pisses me off the most, probably because I know it's not changing.
They might make it like so that you can turn icons off and on so that it's easier to spot things or something.
Yeah.
But I mean, I fully anticipate all of the like little minor like, ooh, that maybe doesn't work as well as it should. Like, let's fix that.
Yeah, like there's a lot of quality of life stuff that will be coming within the next 6 months to a year.
Now that they have like a bunch of people playing and going, hey, that's not the best.
Yeah. So it's exciting to see. And like I said, this is one of those games where I pick it up, play it for, like I've played it a lot recently because it came out and then the season started. And so I've played it more than I typically play a lot of Diablo games. But I foresee it kind of falling into more of a natural cadence of like, okay, I'm going to, a new season just started. I'm going to start up a new character. I'm going to, go through the season journey. And that's, I'm going to get super into Diablo 4 for like a few weeks. And then I'm going to finish the journey and put it back on its, shelf and play a different game for, 3 months. And then come back when the new season starts or whatever, And so it's not one that I feel like I need to sit down and play every single day. It's one that I like to play whenever I'm in the mood for it. And, like we've talked about it before, it's a good cozy game. It's a good game to sit down and, listen to a podcast or have a YouTube video on, or, I watched like 2 seasons of the X-Files while playing it originally, so like it's a good game.
I do want the cosmetic seasonal rewards like we had in 3, where like you finish the season, you get like fun wings, or you get I want the pets that follow you around and pick up the gold for you. I want that back.
Yeah.
That was a good one. But I feel like that'll come eventually.
Yeah, it'll either come eventually or just like, they'll probably tweak some of the cosmetic stuff. Because they don't have pets in this one. They don't have they have back stuff. So in theory they could let you do like wings or whatever. But it currently is like we have the little dog we got for being in the beta that sleeps on her back. And then I've got a couple from like Twitch rewards or something.
But I liked those little tiny rewards for finishing the season.
Cool. Well, that was our deep dive into Diablo 4. This is normally the part of the show where I have our guest plug whatever thing they do in the gaming space. Delaney, I don't know if you have anything worth that you want to plug, or if you just want to take this minute to like say something to the people.
Wouldn't it be fun if I had like a secret podcast I could just drop right here?
It would be very interesting. I would listen to your podcast.
It would be a good podcast.
Well, you'd probably be editing it for her, so
I would have to know about it.
That's fair. What would I have a podcast about?
I don't even want to like.
I feel like it would be one of those conversational ones. I started listening to a podcast.
You're going to come on our show and plug someone else's podcast that you're not even... Okay.
The worst part is I don't even know what it's called. I like the conversational ones, sort of, that are just like background noise. Like while I'm working or whatever, I can just have it on. I found one the other day that was just like, it's a podcast and it's one woman, don't know the name, so this is going to be super helpful. But she just has somebody on and they just like whatever random gossip is going on in their life that nobody has any idea about. Like they just randomly were like, look what's going on. And it was, I don't know why, but I was really invested in it.
I feel like you and my wife could do a show like that very easily.
Yep.
It's just nice to be appreciated.
Well, we appreciate you coming on this episode and talking Diablo 4 with us. I think it's been a good episode. Dylan, any housekeeping before we close this thing out?
We have a YouTube channel. This one is actually kind of relevant. So
for once,
I mean, normally we plug our YouTube channel, but like we don't necessarily have something to tie it to.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in Diablo 4, if you've made it to the end of this episode and are interested in it somehow, I maybe should have plugged that part at the beginning. We do have a YouTube video that is about getting into Diablo 4 and enjoying it as like from a more casual side of things. Because a lot of the, like, if you're the type of person who looks up guides or looks up like videos, an overwhelming majority of those kind of things out there are for people who are super hardcore, have played 800 hours and are in the end game. And so there wasn't a ton of stuff that was just like advice for like people who had maybe never played a Diablo 4 game, or who were just trying to like enjoy it from a more casual perspective and weren't trying to run the same dungeon 500 times in order to level 50, because that was on paper the most efficient way to do it.
Oh, and that sounds awful.
Yeah, which is why I put so little stock in the people who complain about how the game is not fun when they did that.
You made it not fun.
Exactly.
That is the thing about Diablo. If you're not having fun, go do something else. There's like 20 things you can do.
We also have a video out on Diablo 3 that is also like talking about, like, does it still hold up in 2023? Spoilers, I think it does. But if you're interested,
watch that video.
If you're interested in Diablo, though, take a look at our YouTube channel.
Yes, and just interested in some shorter form content from us, because we have a variety of cool stuff over there, and we've been kind of playing around and trying some different things over the summer. It's been a lot of fun. As far as the podcast goes, if you can't find the one that Delaney was trying to recommend, you can always just go rate ours 5 stars or give us a review. That really helps us out in the algorithm and all the feeds out there, getting more eyes on the show. And we would really appreciate it. But yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to listen to this one like 400 times so it can be the new most popular one and I can continue my streak, that would be cool.
Way less than that they would have to listen to it. But yes, please listen to this. But yeah, if you liked Delaney's opinions, she's also on the Cozy Games episode that we have and the Quarry episode that we have. And that's it.
Yeah, she was also on the Thanksgiving special for Level Playing Field, but don't go listen to that. It still exists, but don't go listen to it. Please, for the love of God.
I mean, if you guys ever have a Diner Dash episode, let me know.
For sure.
I don't think we will, but sure.
For sure. We will keep you in mind for that. But until the Diner Dash episode, that's it for this one. We will catch you all on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Friendly Neighborhood Gamers podcast. If so, we would greatly appreciate your help in growing the show and the community by giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any other podcasting app that allows it.
We also have some great videos on our YouTube channel, including reviews, rankings, and other topics. We would really appreciate you checking it out. And if you want to keep up with everything going on in the neighborhood, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and feel free to jump in our Discord server.
We hope to see you there. Links for everything are in the podcast description. Thanks again for listening, and remember,
stay friendly, gamers.